During that time, they're doing plenty of activities, and that's called the launch campaign. Let's look at what they did.
On November 5th, the CSO-1 satellite arrived in French Guiana. The support equipment for the purpose of the campaign, along with the satellite container, were unloaded from the Antonov at the Félix-Éboué airport and transferred to the Kourou Space Center. We dedicated the S1A building to the first phase of the satellite preparation. There, all the satellite checks and configuration operations were performed as planned. These included inspections of solar arrays, RF compatibilities tests, as well as electrical systems and propulsion tests.
As a result of intense operational activities going on across the various launch sites, the campaign sequence had to be adapted. The various elements of the launcher were taken out of storage and assembled in mid-November. Then at the end of November, we filled the Fregat with storable propellant in the F-Cube building. On December 5th, filling operations were completed, and on December 10th, the Fregat was transferred to the S3B facilities.
The satellite was then transferred to its dedicated building, where its tanks were filled with hydrogen and then pressurized. The final satellite activities were then performed before the start of the combined operation plan, focusing on the elements of the launcher. The next phase of the campaign was performed in line with the standard sequence of the operations plan for a Soyuz campaign in French Guiana. The satellite was integrated on its flight adapter, the Fregat stage was taken to the S3B facilities, and the satellite adapter system was positioned on the Fregat. The next day, the teams encapsulated the satellite adapter and performed the electrical connections, allowing the satellite to be operated again by our clients.
Once the final checks were completed, the upper composite was transferred to the launch zone on December 14th. The launch rehearsal took place on December 15th. At 3 a.m. today, we entered the final chronology. The storable propellant filling operations are now completed, and we're getting ready to carry out the final pre-launch operations.
I would like to thank all the teams for the outstanding quality of their work and a good working atmosphere underpinning this launch, and I'd like to extend my very best wishes for the festive season.
Indeed. And I have come running back to my commentary box inside the Jupiter Control Center, so I'm now overlooking the room that you've been looking at, where Pierre has been with the VIP guests, and overlooking the fishbowl, and I can see the screens in front of me. And this is what we're all looking at on those screens, the nose of the launcher, the fairing with our satellite inside. And here inside the Jupiter Control Center, all the VIP guests in the chairs, and this is the Guiana Space Center, but only part of it, because we have a lot of buildings here. But what we're looking at is the control center, and this, of course, is the real launcher. The previous one we were looking at is not the real Ariane 5. So we have several launch control centers, one for each of the pads, and today we're using, obviously, the Soyuz Launch Control Center. The Launch Control Center is where the teams deal very much with the launcher and all the activities to do with the launch pad, whereas the Mission Control Center is where the teams deal with the whole mission. Now, in here we have several different teams, one of those responsible for the ground operations, led by the launch site operations managers, and then another team responsible for flight readiness of the vehicle. And of course we have both Russian and European teams here in the Launch Control Center, because Soyuz is a Russian vehicle. So here at the Guiana Space Center, the control center's in a protected building about 1 kilometer from the pad. In Russia, in Kazakhstan rather, in Baikonur, launch control is in several bunkers under the ground, about 50 meters from the pad. So those guys and girls are about 20 kilometers as the crow flies from here. But if you can see in the distance a road where those flags are, and if you take the road there, that takes you to the launch site. It takes about 45 minutes by car. Getting closer now. A couple of important people here. This is the Range Operations Manager. Can you see to the right of the launcher a big grey metal mast? That's called the KZM. You get a better view of it there. Now, it's actually feeding all the umbilical lines to the top parts of the launch vehicle and the satellite. You can't actually see them because they're tucked away inside the mast. But below the big grey mast, you can see another slightly smaller mast, a blue one sticking up and attaching to just below the open section of the launcher. In the middle there, that's also carrying umbilical lines to the lower parts of the vehicle. When we say umbilical lines, we're talking about things like the electrical links, communications, etc. Now, he's just announced that we have jettisoned those lines. What that means is they've disconnected from the side of the launcher, they've unclamped and fallen into a basket which is inside the grey mast, the KZM, so we can't see it. Both of those masts are going to pull away just before launch. Quick word about the ignition sequence. We switch the engines on 19 seconds before launch. That's because we throttle them up slowly to check everything's working fine. We're coming up to the 1 minute mark. We are live at the Guiana Space Centre. We're launching CSO-1 for the French Space Agency, CNES, and the French Defence Procurement Agency, the DGA, built by Airbus as prime contractor, and with help from Thales Alenia Space for the all-important optical instrument. And we're travelling on board the 20th Soyuz to launch from the Amazonian jungle, and the last launch this year from the CSG.
Attention pour moins une minute.
Best wishes to all.
Okay, so there's 1 minute left. Hello guys, my camera isn't working, sorry. For those of you who are new, just joining, and want to know what the payload is a classified thing, so we have no idea on what it is. I may have to restart my streaming PC.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le début de la séquence d'allumage du lanceur.
Not right now, though.
Top. À 0-20 secondes. Largage du Macazeden. À tous de DDO, attention pour le début de la séquence d'allumage du lanceur. 8, 5, 6, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage, à tout. Décollage.
Jeez, that thing sounds really crazy. Different than most launches. Quite hard to see today. Looks real foggy. Oh, that's cool. You can start to see the smoke coming from, or the clouds forming around it. Wow, look at it go.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Wow, that guy's shaky. But then again, you gotta give him credit.
Bonne stabilisation du lanceur.
And they are off.
Yep.
They are off. CSO-1 has started its journey.
Les moteurs du second et du premier étage fonctionnent nominalement.
Soyuz blazing a trail across the skies here at the Guiana Space Center. Heading out north over the Atlantic.
Nice.
Superb images there of the boosters being jettisoned. See how they twist and turn, all part of the plan. And that's what it looks like from up there.
That's
we had
so
cameras
cool.
on a previous launch.
It's going fast, yes it is.
And we're now looking at the dot in the middle there, the engine of the main stage, which is propelling us towards space. The Soyuz flying away from us.
I hope it's going towards space. Shit.
Superb images there. Very lucky to have clear skies. And he's telling us that the second stage is burning nominally. Everything is going according to plan.
The only thing I wish that they would have told me is when Miko
Right-hand side
happened,
of your screen, the trajectory. That's the trajectory of the vehicle, the planned trajectory, with the cross being the actual position of the launch vehicle.
When Miko happens.
Take a look
and
at the front of the vehicle there, the pointy section. We saw it before. It's called the fairing.
Yeah, no shit. Fuck, she's loud. And whenever it goes through Max Q. I wish that they would have told me both of those. All she's talking about is the fairing. Everybody should know what the fairing is by now. If you guys don't, it's just the outer casing.
So the fairing was protecting our satellites from the rigors of the launch. You can just imagine how loud it was at liftoff back there.
Aaron Space, you've never heard of them?
From acoustic vibrations and from friction as we were coming up through the denser part of the atmosphere. But now look at our altitude.
They're an old company.
122 kilometers above
they launch
Soyuz
rockets,
beyond what we call the Kármán line,
which are Russian
We
rockets.
don't have any friction now, so we're coming up to the point where we can start the process of jettisoning our fairing, because the name of the game is to lose weight. This is the moment, the scheduled moment to jettison the fairing. We'll get the confirmation of that later.
That's cool.
Oh, look at that. It's great, those images from previous launch.
Oh, from a previous launch.
The fairing has been jettisoned, and we can see our satellite exposed to space for the first time. Now, remember that open section in the middle? It's about to do its job. It's because we use a hot stage technique to switch on the engine of the third stage before we jettison the second stage, and therefore we need that open area to evacuate. And you can see you saw back there the 4 parts of it fell away. So we lifted off from the Guiana Space Center, and we have confirmation that that's now been separated. The tracking station here at the Guiana Space Center is called Galileo. You can see it there, and you can see our flight path. The little sort of star, if you like, is our launcher. Heading up towards the next tracking station.
You know what's actually really messed up about that is it's heading towards Bermuda Triangle right now, which is heading north. So it's going, you know, north-south pole, north-south pole. That's the way it's gonna rotate.
Our altitude, 184
so it's literally gonna it's flying towards my house right now. Currently, this thing is gonna travel above me. Which is so cool. Like if I were to look outside with a pair of binoculars or so. No, not right now. It's too foggy.
Across the pad
it's like
from the
cloudy.
Liftoff.
But if it was a clear sky, I'd be able to look outside and see this thing.
Where the vehicle is over the Earth.
Four kilometers a second. Right. That's crazy, man.
Our speed on the bottom right.
Yeah.
Everything going according to plan. Our speed for 4 kilometers and 4.64 kilometers per second, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just say that again. We are flying nearly 5 kilometers per second.
5 kilometers per second.
Per hour.
Yeah, per second.
Here's an overview of what's going to be coming up and the major milestones.
After lifting off from the Guyana Space Center, the flight of the 3 lower stages of Soyuz will last about 9 minutes. Then the upper composite, made up of the Fregat upper stage, the adapter, and the CSO-1 satellite, will separate from the 3rd stage of the launcher. The 3 lower stages and the fairing will drop off into the sea. Fregat will perform 2 propulsion
Well, if I ever have a
before the
rocket
separation of the
land
satellite.
at my
First burn
house,
of about 9 minutes,
I'm going to get a pretty
followed
nice
by a ballistic
paycheck.
phase of about 35 minutes. And a second burn of about 1.5 minutes, followed by a second ballistic phase of about 5 minutes. The CSO-1 satellite will then be separated on its dedicated orbit 1 hour and 44 seconds after liftoff. At the end of its mission, Fregat will be placed on an orbit safely below the satellite orbit thanks to one more ignition of its engine.
So that's what's coming up. Now, our flight path takes us north, heading up over the Caribbean, along the east coast of the US.
I wish Star Citizen would
across the Arctic, and we come back down
allow us to
to
go at
the
6K a
southwest
second.
coast of Australia, where we'll be starting the process of separating our satellite.
The fastest ship only goes 1K a second.
The whole thing takes roughly an hour. We heard an overview of that from Stefan Israel earlier. We're using telemetry to track our vehicle. Basically, for anyone who's not familiar with that, during the flight, Soyuz sends information to the ground stations along its path, and they then send that data here to the teams at the Guyana Space Center. And this allows them to monitor the flight in real time, so that's how we get the confirmations that the range operations manager is calling out, and it also allows them to make an evaluation afterwards. So this is the scheduled moment for the 3rd stage to burn out and be jettisoned. We'll wait for the confirmation of that.
Séparation partie haute.
And we have the confirmation that it has now been jettisoned. And we're seeing
Acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station des Bermudes.
And we also have confirmation that we've now picked up the signal at the tracking station in Bermuda. That's in the Caribbean. The Caribbean ladder of islands, and we're seeing key moments happening as they are scheduled to happen at the time they're scheduled to happen. We get the actual confirmations of those from the range operations manager just a little bit later. That's perfectly normal. It's because the data from the launcher has to go via Moscow for validation before arriving here at the CSG.
Premier allumage de l'étage Fregat.
And he's just announced that we've had the switch on of the Frigate upper stage engine. That's what it looks like up there. Frigate is that gold structure. That's what's left now of our launcher. And it's switched its engine on. So we're really starting the next phase now of the journey. The Frigate upper stage is a little bit like a taxi driver. It's taken the wheel, and its job is to deliver our satellite to its drop-off point in space. We call that special place the separation orbit.
It's such a small little piece. Well, it's about the size of me, but...
The guests here watching the launch from the Mission Control Center. Now, if we just take a look on the right-hand side, you can still see the image of the frigate upper stage. So we're looking here, the gold structure frigate. In the middle is the dispenser, and then on the left-hand side we could see our satellite. And there you can see on the right-hand side our trajectory on the top, and our flight path, if you like, a sort of a visualization of where we are on the planet. We're in the range of the tracking station of Bermuda. We're flying out across the Atlantic, heading north towards our next tracking station, which will be the St. Hubert tracking station. That's in Canada. That's going to be the next tracking station to pick us up. And the CSO
Canada
satellites
height.
are the orbital space component of a program called MUSIS. We'll be finding out more about that later. But in the meantime, the satellites will replace the French Armed Forces Helios satellites. And they are high-resolution, the CSO satellites are high-resolution reconnaissance satellites, which will give the military detailed images of what's happening on the ground. And the CSO program is for the French Ministry of Defence's procurement agency, the DGA. We're going to hear from them now.
Today, military space applications are clearly vital for assuring our independent strategic decision-making capability and the conduct of military operations. That's why the defence spending plan for 2019-2025 intends to devote a significant budget to them. In 2022, we're going to renew most of our military telecommunication satellites, signals intelligence satellites, and of course our observation satellites, as we're already doing with the launch of CSO from French Guiana. We'll then be orbiting 2 more CSO satellites, the third of which is planned to launch on the new Ariane 6 vehicle in development. Starting in 2023, we're also going to prepare the successors to these satellites, particularly for signals intelligence, but also for observation. We'll begin building all these systems, including a third telecommunications satellite. And we'll be complementing our capabilities through this defence spending plan with geopositioning assets. For that, we'll be using the European Galileo system for a program called Omega. That program will give our forces a satellite positioning capability independent of the US GPS system. We obviously want to pursue this effort under our defence spending plan with our European partners, and we're going to ask them to join us on all of these programs wherever possible.
And during that film, we heard from the range operations manager that we have confirmation that we've now flown into the range of the St. Hubert tracking station, or Saint-Hubert, which is in Canada. So the guys and girls there have picked up our signal.
Which means that right now it's
tracking our launcher as we speak.
In the next couple of minutes, the thing is going to be hitting over me.
The town of Saint-Hubert is just outside Montreal in Quebec.
Okay, that's really close to me.
The aerospace industry, I believe, is very important there. Apparently the Canadian Space Agency has its head office in the borough, so we're heading on.
Oh, wow, okay. That thing is literally going to be flying over me.
Heading out over Greenland, and we'll be coming down the other side of the Earth.
Wow, that is nuts, dude.
CSO is very much a French national program, although the services will also be available to some of France's partners. So it's logical that the French Defence Procurement Agency, who we heard from just now, the DGA, chose the French Space Agency as the contracting authority to provide both the satellites and the launch services. In fact, the French Space Agency is actually called CNES in France, which stands for the National Centre for Space Studies. And as I said earlier, teamwork is responsible for an awful lot of things in space, and the CNES has been responsible for many important and exciting space programs over the years.
Trust me, that thing is not crashing.
Teamwork. And since its inception in 1961, it's been working with the Ministry of Defence in the field of space surveillance and tracking. Very important.
If that thing were to come through the Earth's atmosphere, the thing would burn up by the time it hit the ground.
And the CSO program, as well as their broader range.
The launch of this first CSO satellite is a key milestone in our military space strategy that highlights the 3 facets of how CNES is serving defence applications. First, CSO draws on the heritage of everything we've developed since 1986 with the Spot, Helios and Pléiades satellites, and we'll continue to do that since we're now working on Ceres and the next generation of Syracuse. Second, CSO illustrates all that is best about France's space technology capabilities. CNES, in partnership with the French space industry, has developed the marvel of technology that is CSO-1. And I believe we can say it is the envy of the world. And third, this evening's launch is only a start, as CNES's undisputed expertise will be supporting a whole series of operations once the satellite has been sent aloft and then begins its service life. All of this will show how effectively CNES is supporting our defence community.
Oh yeah, that thing is going over me.
Wonderful, isn't it? Some really fantastic programs there. Really high-tech and very, very exciting work that's being done by the men and women.
That thing is over me, like right now.
World. And here we are looking at these beautiful images of our satellite attached to the upper stage there. We saw them. Look on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see it there. Just a quick description of what we're looking at. The frigate upper stage to the left, which is burning its engine. It's a circular structure with 6 spherical tanks, 4 of those for propellant and 2 of those for avionics. That's the kind of thing you find on the aeroplane, the flight control systems, navigation, that kind of thing. And then you can't see it very well, but in the middle is a sort of a round circular disc structure, and that's the special adapter or dispenser, as it's sometimes called, which is attaching our satellite. And then in the front, the white structure is our satellite, CSO1, and it's got 4 solar panels. You can see 2 of them there, all nicely and neatly folded up. Those are going to unfold later when the satellite is separated. Now, these CGI images that we're looking at are a simulation of what's actually happening up there in space. So obviously it's not the real thing, it is a simulation, but basically what happens is the experts plan an incredibly detailed program of events which they then put into the computer, and the computer then generates these lovely images for us to be able to see, and you get a really good view of it there because you can see the frigate upper stage from behind. And basically every movement, every white flash, every burn of an engine that you see is what has been scheduled to happen at this moment in space. And I think those little white things that we can see there may be the nozzles which help the frigate upper stage to move around. We'll see this later in the flight, but it does lots of orientation maneuvers. And it gives little bursts of gas, I believe. Do correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I think that's the way it maneuvers itself. So as it twists around, we get a great view there of the satellite.
Well, if they're the
it's getting ready now to
what is it, air thrusters?
I was about to say it's getting ready to switch its engine off, but it's actually now done it. We have that confirmed from the range operations
but it looks like that there's quite a bit on there.
The onboard computer has sent the command to switch off the engine. It knows because of various things. It knows where it is in space. It has times, etc. It knows when to switch its engine off, and it's now done that. So we're really entering the next phase now. It's called the ballistic phase. Ballistic means travelling without the engine. We're coasting, travelling without propulsion. We're coasting without the engine. It's quite an interesting word actually, because ballistic, I did a little bit of digging, apparently comes from the Greek word to throw. And it actually takes its name from a Roman weapon, which was called a ballista, or sometimes called a bolt thrower. And that's because ballistae looked rather like large crossbows, and Roman soldiers used them to hurl large rocks over great distances to try and damage rampart walls.
Look at that, boys. We're learning about ancient history.
The whirring sound of a ballista-fired stone would strike fear and dread into the hearts of those inside the besieged walls.
They'll be already knowledgeable to start
find out
playing
more
Assassin's
about our satellite,
Creed.
CSO1.
The new one, at least.
In the domain of national security and defense, space assets give France an independent situational awareness and decision-making capability, while boosting operational effectiveness.
Yeah, let's just put more satellites in space to help people kill more people. Sounds good.
Hundreds of operators use imagery from our military satellites to do their job every day. More than 50 satellite telecommunications stations are deployed every year to link mainland France to theatres of operations.
To help people spy on people, to help people kill people.
Nearly 2/3 of weapons are fired at targets located from satellite images and guided by a satellite-based positioning system.
The renewal of armed forces starts here.
The 2019-2025 defence spending plan reaffirms the importance of space and provides the resources to completely renew the nation's military space capability. This renewal cycle gets underway with the launch of the first CSO satellite in December 2018, leading off the new generation of military observation satellites designed to meet the armed forces' growing needs.
Growing needs?
The constellation of 3 identical satellites will be deployed by 2022, replacing the Helios 2 satellites currently in service.
Okay, so that's what we just witnessed.
Space-based observation is designed to complement ground, surface and air systems and assist in detecting, locating, reconnaissance and identifying any military target of interest.
Here, I'll just turn myself
data
down.
For intelligence, targeting or geography.
Okay, so essentially what they're getting at is the reason why that this was classified is because this is to help spy on people.
The CSO optical constellation has been developed in close partnership by DGA and CNES for distinct operational missions.
GG.
The first mission is reconnaissance, performed by 2 satellites orbiting at 800 kilometers to enhance coverage, acquisition and revisit over theatres of operations. The second mission is identification, performed by a 3rd satellite at 480 kilometers to deliver the highest possible resolution and detail of analysis. For these missions, the satellite's telescope acquires imagery in the visible and infrared, using a variety of viewing modes to cover a broad spectrum.
Oh yeah, that's, you know, totally spying.
The satellites are operated by CNES from Toulouse, where it positions and keeps them on station, draws up their work plans and conducts image quality control. The armed forces can order and receive imagery from different sites in mainland France and directly from the theatres where they are needed. The CSO satellites combine the very best of French industrial expertise, giving the armed forces a key technological edge to gain military advantage.
CSO offers numerous improvements. First, better precision with imagery of unrivaled quality in Europe, thanks mainly to its large telescope.
I mean, good for Google
Second,
Earth, but
more capacity, with more images acquired per orbit and per day.
Let's be honest.
And above all, greater agility.
It's not going to be used for
this
that.
This extra agility means more images can be acquired when flying over a particular area of interest.
A particular area of interest.
And third, improved responsiveness, with the ability to downlink images from the satellite to a ground station near the polar circle in Sweden. This significantly shortens the time from request to delivery.
The CSO satellites are part of a broad program called MUSIS that will also be assuring continuity of service in radar satellite imaging to sustain a complementary all-weather capability.
Okay, that's not bad.
This additional capability is currently provided by bilateral cooperation agreements that give France access to data from the German SAR Lupa and Italian Cosmo SkyMed systems. For MUSIS, similar cooperation arrangements are in place to secure long-term exchange of data from CSO and the new generation SARA radar satellite for Germany and second generation Cosmo SkyMed for Italy.
Okay, so are they saying that
the CSO system is also
everyone
open to
can
other partners?
access these files?
Sweden and Belgium have already joined the CSO community, and France is actively engaged in discussions with other nations to extend it and consolidate Europe's space intelligence capability in the years ahead. With CSO, France is acquiring a capability like no other in Europe, tailored to its forces' needs. This system will initially complement the existing capabilities offered by Helios 2 and Pléiades, bringing extra resilience to new threats.
As the President has stated, space is a matter of national security. Our military space capabilities deliver vital support to our authorities and military operations. They are an important element of France's strategic independence. With the arrival of new threats, it's crucial that we maintain our ability to surveil, identify, know and act from space and in space. In this context, the launch of CSO marks a key milestone in the renewal of our military space capabilities.
Yeah, to spy and kill people.
Very exciting and very inspiring.
No, it's not.
Now, just to let you know, we've gone out of the range of the tracking stations, so we're in a period for about 31 minutes of being out of the range of the tracking stations.
I'm sorry,
all
I
very
just
much
don't
part of the plan.
get the need
and,
to
that's why we
keep
don't
killing
see the
people
details
and
on the
keep
bottom of the
providing
screen
weaponry
giving us
when
the information.
we should take our money and do more
moment,
better
and that's all
things
perfectly normal.
with it.
The
Like
Soyuz vehicle
trying
is
to
storing the information, and
better
when we check in again at the next
our
telemetry
pollution
station,
in the air, trying to
download
get
that.
off of this planet,
Now,
become a
spacecraft have
multi-planet
lots
species.
of jobs, as you well know.
You know,
For
maybe
example, things like
reevaluate your
telecommunications, internet,
robotics
saying
industries.
hello there to the camera. Team's looking very, very relaxed there. Of course, they're extremely experienced. They've all done this many, many times before.
Airbus.
And then other jobs of satellites and spacecraft. Well, things like looking deep into our universe, trying to understand who we are and where we've come from, traveling out into the solar system to land on other planets, and even try and bring some home. And of course, looking back at Earth to understand our own planet. Yeah. We call that Earth observation.
You think the same
and
way?
It's
yeah.
hugely important,
for sure.
Because you can see things from space that you can't see from Earth. So space plays a vital role in monitoring things like the ice caps, the oceans. And it plays a hugely important role, of course, in the military. Let's take a look at the history of military observation from space.
Let's not, because we know what it is. You spy on somebody and you kill somebody. End of story. I know what military shit has to, yeah. Fuck the military. Okay, so. Either I could keep streaming and not have my camera, or I could restart my streaming PC and have my camera back on. So, up to you guys. Up to you guys. What do you guys want me to do? I know there's a delay, so I'll wait for this mini delay here. Man, so I'm also gonna create a I can keep streaming. You guys don't want me to turn off my damn camera or turn off my stream. Kind of sucks though, because I kind of do want my camera. Kind of do want it. That sucks. Kind of do want it on. I don't know how to fix it though. That's my only problem. It just randomly is not registering. I know, that's what I mean. That's why I just wanted to restart it. That one is Oh, that's the keyboard? Oh. But it's weird that if I unplug my camera, I can. It like doesn't register at all. Like at all.
I'm here.
There you are. There we go. Not even my voice on here is being registered? Oh, wow. So not even my voice is being registered on Discord right now. Wow. Yeah, everything is not working. Okay, that's a bad situation. Alright, I'm gonna restart. Yeah. Which means that I don't know how YouTube works. I don't think you can just refresh it and it will come back. I'm not entirely sure how this works. I think I'm going to need to create a whole new little thing. I don't know. Whatever the case, I'm going to restart the stream. And I will be right back, okay? So hold tight, guys. I'll be right back. Actually, just give me a second while I'll just leave it. Yeah, okay. Be right back.